Mbemba mutula moto nye pon maladi. Bodube papa jita. Owasi tembus.
What? Are you surprised? Our government has put in so much effort in order to ensure a drug-free society. But we find our youths taking cocaine, Indian hemp, tramadol. That has been their engagements in recent times, according to reports. As though that is not enough, we find cases of sexual violence, the menace of pedophiles. If you must know, a pedophile is an adult who takes advantage of a minor sexually. Sex, which is supposed to be a discreet act, has today become a public affair. People engage in it anywhere, with whoever and wherever. My mom, who has once been a victim of sexual violence, usually tells me, I quote, "The forceful penetration of a woman without her consent is like killing the victim again and again. Because the emotional and psychological trauma that accompanies such a victim can last her a whole lifetime." I don't know how true that statement is until it was tested to be true. In the year 2006, I had a neighbor by name Mr. Addison, a man of high social class, working as a manager in a world-renowned company in our town of Friendship, Limbe. He lived with his wife, Mrs. Dora, and the daughter, Mercy. Mrs. Dora brought Mercy into marriage at the age of 5. And anyone who knew Mercy knew her as Addison's biological daughter. Mercy was my friend. We hung out together. We fetched even water together. But over the years, we realized that Mr. Addison was overly protective of this young girl. Reasons I do not know. He even prevented her from mingling with other kids, especially the boys. Which to us was the good act of a caring and loving father. One Sunday evening, I realized at about 7 a.m. that the taps had ceased. Usual of Mercy to come around to our house and call me, or I to her place, but I waited to no avail. So I decided to go over to her place to call my dear friend. When I got there, I met her in bed, emotionally cold and distant. "Mercy, are you okay?" I asked. "I'm fine. I just want to be left alone," she responded. The gloomy look on her face made me undoubtedly sure that all was not okay with my friend. I persuaded her the more because I wanted to know what actually was wrong with this little girl. Out of anger, she shouted, I'm tired. Tired of what? I asked. She flung the pillow at the other side of her bed and told me, "Can I trust you?" "Yes, my friend, you can," I responded. "Please, if I should tell you this, don't tell anybody. I beg of you." My heart was filled with so much anxiety as to find out what this little girl wanted to say. Then, with tears in her eyes, she explained, My daddy usually touches my breast and asks me to show him my underwears so that he could ascertain the size of my bra. But I wonder, when it became the responsibility of parents to touch their children's breasts before ascertaining the sizes of their bra, she went on explaining and made me understand that the father, Mr. Addison, was sexually attracted to her. An attraction he wouldn't let go. I was filled with fury. I wanted to know more. So I asked, with my own background knowledge on violence, and as a product of it, I knew something was definitely wrong. She went on explaining. On one Sunday morning, my dad took me out for an exclusive treat. He took me to the amusement park, she said. Of course, that is what each and every parent do to their children. But at the end of the day, he took her to a nearby hotel, which he told her he wanted to see a friend who just came into town. While at the hotel, he took her into one of the rooms, she explained, and offered her a drink, which she only realized herself lying on the bed a few minutes after. She woke up with abdominal pains, soaked with blood. It was her own blood. It was coming out from her own body. Coming out from the most unexpected place. Though not at that moment she expected. Thinking the worst might have happened, she burst into tears and threatened the father she was to tell the mother what he has done. But the man wouldn't have done anything less than the act of assigning the monster. He threatened to kill her if she dares offer a word to anyone. This man has sexually violated her, raped the little teenager, and her virginity that day was gone. Gone in the most traumatizing way. That day she was filled with depression. That day was not just the day she lost her virginity, but the beginning of a life full of pain, sorrow, and so much pity. Mrs. Dora, on her part, a dear and loved woman, had gone 20 kilometers away to Mutengene for a funeral service and was only to be back the next day. She was never around to witness what was supposed to be the worst day in the life of her daughter. Mercy went on explaining and said, as though it was not enough, Mr. Addison one day sneaked into her bedroom with the sleep still in her eyes as she tried to open her eyes, but felt the presence of the monster. And the only thing she could hear was, "Open!" Before she could come to terms with what was happening to her, the monster flung her legs apart and raped her again and again. He was indeed a monster. When my friend had finished telling me this, I was filled with pity, sorrow, pain, burden-hearted, thinking of how to help my dear friend, Mercy, get out of this mess. But she kept begging and asking me not to say a word to anyone, else the father might accomplish what he promised. Two days after, the uncle visited from Mutengene, which I decided to tell him what the little niece had said. Immediately he called for a family meeting and both parties were questioned. Mr. Addison, on his part, denied all accusations labeled against him. I wouldn't expect anything from a perpetrator and abuser like him. To an extent, the family believed him. But Addison, proud and arrogant, to himself and to the others, said, I have done nothing but take care of Mercy. Ever since she was 5, I sent her to school, and yet she wants to rub my name in the mud. In all this, he expressed the fact that he wanted Mercy out of his house. But the mom, Mrs. Dora, kept pleading and begging for her daughter to stay. Only then, and that day, Mercy realized that Mr. Addison was never her biological father. She cried as Mrs. Dora went after her and asked of the whereabouts of her father. And she said, your father denied ownership of your pregnancy when I became pregnant, and only called 10 years after, wanting to apologize and get you back, which I replied was too late because you had been fully accepted into Addison's house. Those were the words of Mrs. Dora. That day came and passed like the wind. But as the adage goes in pidgin, 99 days for a thief, 1 day for the owner of the house. Meaning the day of disclosure. One morning at about 4 a.m., while we were still in bed, we heard a sharp noise coming from the next door. It sounded like a fight, as though all was not well. Of course, in our African society, the neighbors gathered either to separate the fight or to help calm a victim. On that day, while they struggled to calm Mrs. Dora, she explained as they asked what would make her engage her husband in a fight. She said, with the unfoldings of events in the house in recent times, she became more vigilant and heard the faint voice of her daughter cry for help. Immediately she woke up and went to the daughter's room and overheard Mr. Addison blame the daughter for having told me the friend, despite all the warnings given to her. She immediately pushed the door open, got in and met the husband, pants down in the daughter's bedroom. When the people had heard all this, they became bitter, furious, filled with anger, and turned to Mr. Addison. But the shameless man, with nothing to say in defense for himself, only said, with murmur in his voice as he shivers, man go cook soup, we no go taste them. Those were the words of such a man. The angry mouth pounced on him like bees until the police intervened and took him away, but was later released. Mercy could no longer stay home because she knew the Father could make manifest his promises. She got her things and left to nowhere. And all efforts in getting mercy proved abortive. In the year 2014, while I was in school in Limbe, I met my dear friend Mercy here at Meleng Market, selling fruits and vegetables. We got chit-chatting, and I realized that though years had passed by, but the pain of what happened yesterday was still very fresh in her memory. I later heard she got a visa, an American lottery, and traveled to America. But this story and that of others I know, and those I may not know, has made me seek justice for the violation of a girl child. It kills the soul. What if Mercy had not opened up to me, the friend? Maybe this man would have continued this barbaric act. I might have raped her to death. What is life imprisonment as compared to a sexually violated woman who has lost her voice, her dignity as a woman, her pride in the society? What if he was put behind bars for life? It would not, even for once, be compared to the pains of what she felt. Though they are released as the police came and took him but later released him, this act alone proves that as this monster moves around the surface of the earth, they will still go about devouring other young ladies. But whatever the case may be, denouncing all acts of juvenile delinquency, no matter your situation, is the first step to responsibility and self-discovery. Thank you very much for listening. My name is Constance. Thank you.